Yo, so today I'm going to be showing you guys how I mix my loops. Alright, so usually I don't show the actual process. I'll just name off the effects that I put on everything. So I thought it would be a good idea to actually list everything out. And I know I said there would be a Hyperpop video today, but that'll be on Monday. Alright, so before we get started on the mixing, I'm just going to go ahead and play every sound one by one. This is kind of like an ambient Hyperpop loop, I guess. It's not that great, but it'll work good enough to show you my mixing process. Yeah, alright, so those are all the sounds that I used for this melody. So now we can go and turn everything back on. And then what you want to do to route everything to the mixer, click on the top box of whatever melody is the top one, and then click on the bottom one. You can drag and it'll show up, and everything in these boxes will be highlighted. Then you can go to the mixer, right click, channel routing, and then route selected channels starting from this track. So then everything will go into the mixer. And generally, I like to start mixing on channel 5 and save the 1 through 4 for things I rendered out. So you can see this is this pad thing that I showed at the beginning has already been rendered out, but I already put effects on it in channel 1. It just makes it easier to keep things a little bit more organized. So next what I do is solo each sound. So I just have the main pluck soloed right here, and then I will go open the channel rack and I'll listen to it. And I want everything to level out to 12 decibels. I'm pretty sure that is just number 12 on the master. So then I'm going to adjust the volume through the channel rack and not through the mixer, because this assures that everything going into the mixer is already at an equal volume, so you'll get a more clean mix. So I can just adjust this till I get it at 12 or pretty close to 12. Alright, yeah, so that's pretty close. It's hitting a little bit above, but that'll be okay. So now I'm just going to go through the rest of the sounds and do the same process. Alright, so I did that to every sound, and now every sound is hitting right around that 12 mark. And if you're doing this, sometimes in my videos, you'll see that I'll put effects on it before I actually do the final mix on the melody. You're going to want to turn those effects off. So how you do that is if there's an effects on a channel, you'll get this little thing highlighted, and you can go ahead and turn that off and it'll disable the effects. Just makes it a little bit better so everything's actually equal and you're not leveling it with the effects on it. Alright, so now that everything's level, we can actually start adding effects, EQs, and all that. But an important thing to remember is the order of which the mixer actually works. So slot 1 will get affected first, and then after that gets affected, then slot 2 will get affected. So I like to think of it sometimes if you just think of it first, second, third, fourth, fifth. It just makes more sense. So whatever's in number 10 will be put on last. So it's actually really important that you kind of know that order, because if you have a low cut here, but you do a bunch of reverb and effects, that low cut might not work down here because those effects might have pushed it. So if you put a low cut at the bottom and then the effects, after all those effects are applied, then the lows will be cut, and you'll know that you have that space for an 808. So what I've been doing recently is putting my EQ on slot 9, so it's near the bottom, and then doing my low cut, and then below that, I just do a imager. It's just the order I like to do things. It's not really like meaningful. So after I have that, I can start going up here and adding like reverbs, delays, chorus, whatever. So for this particular pluck, it's really plucky and I want it to be a little bit more ambient. So I'm going to go ahead and add a reverb. And I like to turn the decay up just a little bit, up the wet knob a little bit, and the size knob. So now it'll sound like this. So it just has a little bit more reverb, sounds a little bit nicer. And then I actually think I want that twinkle effect. So I'm going to go into Finisher Micro. Alright, so I just kind of lowered the like knob in here so it isn't too much. But now, going back to like the order thing of which things are affected in, it might sound a little cooler if it gets the sparkle effect and then that sparkle effect with the pluck has the reverb. So I switched the order so it's getting sparkles first and then a reverb and then the EQ image or whatever. So that might sound a little bit different and a little bit cooler. And a pretty good tip is to always like just use your scroll wheel and move things around. You might find a better order that makes it sound better. I sometimes end up doing that a lot, especially with like ambient melodies, because sometimes the reverb can get a little wacky and like distorted, so you have to find the right order to make sure it's like the cleanest. Alright, yeah, so I like the way that sounds, but it's still a little bit too much. The sparkles before the reverb sound a little bit cooler because then the sparkles are more ambient. So now we can go adjust the volume to like just where you see fit. So I think about there sounds pretty good because I know this is pretty loud and like a full sounding melody. So this might take up a little bit more space and you'll want this like mixed together. So now we can move on to the next thing. Again, gonna put the EQ at the bottom just to make sure that there's no lows so nothing clashes with the 808. And then instead of an imager, I want Pancake because this is that pad that I affected earlier. So I'm gonna probably go with the little bit smaller preset and then go 4 bars. That still sounds a little bit too deep, so I'm going to go ahead and move this low cut up. And then I'm just going to try to mix it in with this pluck so it sounds like they're almost equal, but the pad's still kind of a background sound. Alright, so that's a pretty good place for it. And then I think I want to add Magic Switch just to give it a little chorus. I think that'll sound good. This is a free chorus plugin. You should definitely go grab it. It's really good. Alright, so after I have these first two sounds, I usually like to move on to the bass. I don't know why, just something I like to do. But for basses, I always put the same like 20 hertz, 18 something hertz cut, and then I'll move it to about here. And then again, back to the order thing, if I put the distortion above it, because I sometimes like to distort the musk sub bass, it sounds pretty cool, but just the default preset, and I'll turn it down. So it sounds like that, but then of course, back to the order thing, if I put the EQ above, it just sounds more fuzzy because the high end of it isn't getting cut out. But yeah, then I'm just going to mix that in, just kind of play around with the volume a little bit. All right, so that's pretty good. Basses are usually really simple to like mix in and stuff. But now I believe this is the accent pluck. All right, so for this one, I want it to feel super spacious and like in the background, but still kind of present. So there's this knob here below like the normal pan knob and the volume thing, and it does stereo separation, so you can separate it or merge it and make it mono. So I want to separate this a good amount. So that's pretty cool. And then I think I want to go ahead and cut the lows, of course, but then I want to take out some of the highs because thinking about further into the melody where there's leads, I don't want the leads in this like accent pluck to clash. Alright, so it just sounds a little bit more soft with that on it. It doesn't really make sense, but it works a little bit. But then again, just gonna add some reverb and then probably a delay. With delays, I always like to play around with the time knob a little bit. And that's a little bit too much, so I'm gonna turn the mix knob on that delay down. Alright, yeah, so then I just put it there. It fits into the background, but also is present, like I said earlier. Alright, so I already have a plan for like the arrangement of this melody. So I'm going to go with the church bell to mix in next because these four will get grouped together for like the drop of the melody. So I already know what EQ I want to do on this. I do it to every time I use a church bell. It just really cleans it up. You just go like that. And it removes a lot of the like reverb and like ringing noise that it has. And then I want to go ahead and just add back a little bit of reverb. Alright, so now that's decent. I think it might be a little bit too quiet, but we're going to wait to see what the leads sound like with it. Alright, so my thought when making this melody is this harsher lead is going to be for the intro, and then the umbrella lead from the Quadra Bank is going to be more of like actually when the drums are playing. So I might want to take out some of the highs on this one and then boost the highs on this one. So I'm not really sure because sometimes the umbrella lead falls in like the mids. Yeah, so like it's in the mids. So maybe I'm going to reverse it, use the umbrella lead for the intro and the other one for where the drums are. So I'm going to go ahead, open an EQ. So this is already really high pitched. Sometimes on leads, I'll boost the highs a little bit because it's important to have full melodies. Alright, so that's pretty good, and then we can go turn that off and work on the other one. So I do want to boost the high mid area just a little bit so it does have a little bit more high end. And then even though it already has a delay on it, I'm going to put another one on just so it sounds a little bit cooler. Again, go into the ping pong delay. And probably going to keep it on the same like time, delay time. Yes, that sounds pretty cool. Just going to cut because there's some weird stuff here. And then throw pancake on it. Panning is something I've really been doing a lot and like what you guys have seen in like all the videos. But it really does make a really big difference in your melodies. Yeah, and then I'm just going to throw a little bit of reverb on the harsher lead. Just sounds a little dry. Alright, so now I'm going to arrange this real quick, which I really don't have any tips for. I just do it by ear and whatever sounds good I go with. but you go here, split by channel, then you have everything, and then you can put all the rest of your sounds in. And then I'm just gonna arrange this real quick and then talk about like the final things you want to put on your loop. All right, so I forgot to mention some things that should have been mentioned later in the video. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add a random effect. And if you want to transfer an effect to another mixer track, you go File, Save Mixer Track State As, and you drag it onto that, and now they're on both, which is really helpful sometimes. And then another thing which I haven't really done is using the same thing, and you can have a whole effect chain with like presets and everything saved. So then it'll pop up in here once you like make a folder for it and everything, and then you can just drag it in. All right, so right off the bat, I'm gonna make some changes to the mixing. So on the main plug, I wanted to have time for some variation in the arrangement. So I'm going to make sure to put that above the EQ, because if you put the EQ and then the halftime lowers it. So then it'll be weird and muddy, and then you'll have no room for the 808. Yeah, so I like the way that sounds. And then I want to put the turntablist effect from Gross Beat. And then you right click on the mix knob, create automation clip. And then you can go have these wherever you want. So I made sections of the pluck pattern unique. You'll see here it says Serum 7, and that's just that same pluck melody, but it's pitched up an octave. So the halftime will sound decent, and it won't lower it too much to where you don't really hear it. And then one of the last things that's going to happen before we bounce this out altogether is go on to the master so it affects everything. Grab Gross Beat, 1-beat gate. Do this on my videos. It's an amazing little thing that you can do to just spice up the beginnings of your loops. So now we have that. Again, go to the mix knob, create automation clip, and then go like that. All right, so now we have this all arranged. It's all mixed. It's sounding really nice. Now we can do Control A and then click here, Alt R, and this will just record it all into one. I don't know why I started doing this. I think it's because I like to pitch it up and down after the fact and see if there's a pitch that sounds better. But I've been doing this for a while and it works pretty well. All right, so now we have that rendered out. See, it's right here. But now to listen to that, you got to turn off this gross beat on the master because you don't want it affecting the loop, because it's already been recorded where it wants to affect. And then I like to normalize my loops and then put the volume knob to here. And then I like to just play around with the pitch. And sometimes I'll change the mode to stretch and even play around with the BPM a little bit if it feels too slow or too fast. I like the way up 200 cents sounds, but the secondary harsher lead does not sound good, so I'm going to try 100. Alright, so up 1 sounds a little bit less harsh and a little bit nicer. So now we're going to click this, route to the mixer, just any track, it doesn't really matter. And then we're going to want to put a EQ on it, cut the lows, automation clip, and then the bass in the arrangement stops right here. So then we are going to turn this on and then have the EQ come in when the bass is out. So just like that. And then another thing you could do is actually go in here, look at this, see if there's any harsh frequencies, adjust this to 0, and then search for them and take them out. But I don't really hear that many, so I'm just going to listen to it, and then if there's none, move on. Yeah, so overall, this melody is pretty much done. We have the nice EQ on it, so the people that do drums can just throw it in. They don't have to worry about EQing it. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Either a Rage Hyperpop or Happy Hyperpop video on Monday. Yeah, have a fantastic rest of your morning.